We got 5 limited participants today. Jaron Christian with a knee, Isaiah Wright with a shoulder, Montez Sweat, concussion, James Smith-Williams, concussion, and Logan Thomas, ankle. Coach has a quick announcement to open it up, and then we can start with Les.
Just to let you guys know, in talking today with some of the captains and team leaders, with Landon Cullen having gone through surgery and on IR, we had a team captain position opened up, and the players unanimously asked that Terry McLaurin be made a team captain. So they made him a team captain today. We announced it after practice, and the guys were really fired up. So very happy for Terry, a very well-earned honor.
Hey, Ron, how's it going? I guess maybe the first question I would ask is, what have you seen of Terry's leadership abilities and other things over the time that you've come here?
Well, what's been impressive is for such a young player, for such a young man to be as mature as he is, first and foremost, and be the right kind of person that you want to be one of your leaders. He leads by example, a very quiet leader who just goes out and does his job. But his performance most certainly does speak on the field, whether it is practice or game time. And I think that's one of the things that impresses his teammates, especially his veteran teammates, that all felt unanimously about it. So I think it was a heck of an honor. And like I said, just glad to see that he gets the kind of recognition he deserves.
It kind of stayed away from the trade deadline and making a deal. You've talked a lot about trying to change the roster at the bottom and make a lot of moves that way. What is the advantage to doing that?
Well, I think the biggest thing more so for us, and I talked about it last week, I had a couple questions that came up, is, if you're going to make a deal, you want to make a deal for a guy that's got a couple of years left on his contract, that's in a favorable position for you, so that when it does come to fruition, you can get a good contract and it's not going to kill you on your cap. A lot of times people that get offered, a lot of times people that talk about it, they want to trade guys that are in their last year. Well, that's going to be tough. You make a deal and all of a sudden the guy's gone in a year. I went through that a number of times in Carolina. So, unless it was something that we really felt that was going to knock our socks off, we were going to stay away from things. What you try to do is you try to find the right kind of guys. You bring those guys in and you stick with them. A lot of people talk to me about Eric Reed. I love Eric Reed. I really do. And I think Eric Reed should be playing in this league because he's a good football player. But, we had Jeremy who I believe deserved the opportunity because he had a good camp. A lot of good tape from last year. And so I want to stick with some of the guys that were here through camp and see where they are and see if they really are the type of guys that should be here on this football team. And it's funny, I had an opportunity to talk to Jeremy a little bit today and told him, hey, this is your opportunity, go out and show us. So that's what I believe in. And again, we're going to mix some things up at the bottom of our roster. Kyle and his people are doing a good job trying to find the right kind of bring in and add them to our roster. But it's hard with the COVID thing right now because you can't bring guys in and you can't work them out. And his guys have been working their butts off. So, again, this is, something I feel very strongly about in terms of if we can grow guys from inside, we're going to most certainly do that.
Hey, Ron, I just wanted to ask, looks like you could have a lot of your receivers back. How helpful will that be for Kyle and even for Scott getting maybe some more weapons on that offense?
Not just that, but for practice. Holy smokes. I was trying to figure out where we got all those guys from. But it will be. I think it will. I think it'll help Scotty in terms of those will be veteran guys in terms of guys that were here through training camp. The last game we played, we had Brown and Badette that were both guys that we had brought in, and they didn't go through training camp. So these guys, for the most part, were young, didn't quite know everything. So it made play calling tough on Scotty. And I thought Scotty did a good job handling it in the last couple of games with the limited number of players. So now you get guys that have gone through camp that are back working, and hopefully they'll be ready to go on Sunday. And it'll allow us to really open up what we want to do as far as an offense is concerned.
Thank you.
All righty.
Mike Phillips. Not Pete Haley.
Hey, Ron, you mentioned Scott Turner. How have you seen him grow over the past 7 games? I imagine you evaluated him over the bye. What have you seen him kind of get better at as the season's progressed? Well,
I think the biggest thing is getting into those rhythms. Sometimes we as play callers, and I did it as a coordinator as well, is you try to get into a rhythm. You try to find something that's working, and sometimes you reach. And I've seen Scotty get more and more comfortable, and I think part of it has to do with, having a guy out there that knows a little bit more about the system, and it can help you in terms of being comfortable with what you call. And that, I think, is one of the good things. The other thing that's helped, too, is, hey, we've been running the ball well the last few games. So if we can continue to do that, and this will be a hell of a challenge now because they really are one of the top run defenses in the league, it helps as far as the rhythm's concerned. So I've been really pleased with the rhythm that Scotty's had. I do like some of the innovations he's come up with. We ran a couple of plays that have really hit for good gains. And, again, we've got to keep that rhythm going. And one of the things we got to do as a football team, too, is we got to continue to protect the ball on offense.
Hey, Ron, when you have a guy like Cam Curl, who you guys really like because of his versatility, for him to kind of go to one position now, does that, or, I guess presumably, does that change how you evaluate him or things you want him to focus on?
No, not necessarily, because, again, it does change his focus.
Mm-hmm.
It's a heck of a question. It really is a good question. It does change his focus because now he's really looking primarily at safety. What you don't want to do is when you start going to your sub packages is taking one guy and moving him down to another spot because now you got to plug in a whole nother guy. So basically you've got two new guys at two new spots. But with Cam, because his focus really is safety now, we can leave him there and we'll have somebody else to plug in at that big nickel position. So again, instead of moving two guys, we really can only just, we can put ourselves in a position where we're just going to move one spot. And again, Cam is a bright young man. He works hard at it and been very pleased with his progress so far.
Do you think that versatility could allow him to bounce around in the future, or long-term, would you like him to focus on one spot?
Well, because he's such a smart football player, reminds me a little bit of obviously a younger Fuller, a guy that can give you some position flex in case you do have injuries or you do want to do some sub-package stuff. Because, again, here's a guy that is replacing a heck of a football player in Landon. And when Landon gets back, we're going to have a great situation where we can play Cam at different positions. So, again, just going forward, we've got a lot to look at and a lot to watch, but we just feel Cam's a heck of a football player who can help us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ron, just looking at the midpoint of the season, did you have a chance to evaluate all three phases during the buy-in?
Mm-hmm.
And was there anything that really stood out to you?
Defensively, we could have been better on third downs. That's probably if there was an Achilles heel that we've had on defense, it was the third down situation. Now, some of those third down, there were a lot of third and short to mediums, or medium to short, that we had. But overall, very pleased with what we did defensively. Offensively, it really comes down to protecting the ball. If you go back and you look at the games we lost, games that you can point to and say, hey, we had a chance, you can say Cleveland, you can say Arizona. We had some key turnovers that really hurt us, and they took advantage as football teams. So you sit there and say, okay, those games, and New York, I'm sorry. So you had three games that you could point at and say, turnovers really cost us. And then special teams, I've been very pleased with the effort we've got, really have. We did have a couple of mistakes that did hurt us. We turned the ball over one time in Arizona, that hurt us. We gave up a fake against Baltimore, that did hurt us. But been very pleased with the things that we've got from our players in terms of the efforts on all three phases.
And just to follow up on what Sam was asking with position flex, is that something that's becoming more and more common, in your opinion, in the game itself, just those positional lines becoming blurred?
I think so, because you have to be able to adapt and match, with so many different things that you can do now. If you watch teams, they come out and they'll play a base offense. They'll come out in 21 or 12 personnel and play base offense. Now, all of a sudden, you have a special tight end, and all of a sudden you start flexing him out like a wide receiver. Well, if you stay in base, what they're going to do is they're going to target and go after it. So now you've got to go to your nickel package. Well, if you go to your nickel package and you put a true nickel in there, now they're going to bring them in. They're going to run the football right at your nickel. So now you've got to have a kid like a Cam Curl that can play what we call, quote unquote, the big nickel or the Buffalo nickel. Now you have a guy with position flex. Now he can play inside or outside.
This obvious weekend is the first weekend that you'll have about 3,000 fans in the stadium. I know a couple weeks ago you said you even heard the friends and family late in the game, and that made such a difference. Just even to see people in the stands, whether you hear the noise, just the impact and the excitement ahead for Sunday, knowing that you do have those 3,000 fans coming in.
Yeah, Heather, I think that is going to be cool. I really do, because I did feel the friends and family against Dallas, and that was kind of special. It really was, and I was very happy for our guys because they had their family and friends up in the stands. I do look forward to roughly 3,000 fans. I do know that one of the things that Mr. Snyder and Jason really want to be very aware of is really the safety of our fans and making sure everybody sticks to the protocols. But I'm excited about it. I know our players will be excited about it. It's really kind of cool to slowly integrate fans back into the game. because we truly do miss them. Believe me, I would have loved to have had a full house last week against Dallas. That would have been energizing. That really, truly would have.
Thank you.
No, Heidi, Heather.
Hey, Ron, it's John Kime. In Carolina, your teams always had usually had a better record in the second half of the year than in the first. Why did you feel that was the case?
Well, I'll say this. Mostly my if you look at my first 2 years in Carolina, it was really about the development and growing. And that's what I'm hoping we are, is that we're developing and growing right now. Because as the year goes on, hopefully we're playing the right way, we're doing the right things. And, we can win some football games down the stretch. That's what I'm hoping for. And I think that's the big reason why, John. I will say this too, though. Training camp in Carolina was brutal. We'd go down to South Carolina and go to Wofford College because it wasn't hot enough in Charlotte. We just felt that we needed more heat, so we would go. No, I'm just kidding. It was brutal, though. Honestly, training camp. I can remember having training camp where the temperature didn't get below 95, and with the humidity, I think it wears down a little bit. So we started slow, but as the guys recovered and recuperated, I thought their energy levels came back up, and we played better down the stretch.
With your ability now to spend more time coaching the way you want, do you feel you're better positioned for that kind of, better success in the second half as you go forward?
I hope so. I really do. But we got a tough schedule, and we got some really good football teams coming up, and we've got to be at our best if we hope to make some noise. These next few weeks are very important in terms of this NFC East race. We've got an NFC East opponent coming in with the Giants. And I believe we go to Detroit. I think and then after that we got Cincinnati. These are good young football teams as well. So nothing's for granted. We've got to focus in, and we got to take them one at a time in terms of the NFC East. This is a big game for us coming up with the Giants.
Thank you.
All righty, John.
Hey, Ron, Scott Abraham, ABC7. Obviously, there's a lot of reports and rumors leading up to the trade deadline that Dwayne Haskins might be on the move, but obviously he's staying put here in Washington. He's listed as number 3 in your quarterback depth chart. What's it going to take for him to maybe get back up to the backup slot, or do you foresee him staying at number 3 the entire year? How do you evaluate the 2 quarterbacks behind Kyle in terms of who's the backup, who's number 3? Do you see any changes going forward here this season?
I don't see any changes right now, but I do know this, and I really appreciated the way he's been working. I think Dwayne is, understanding that, and again, he and I have talked, and I've told him, I said, Dwayne, this really is about your development and growth. And he's a young quarterback. I've said this before. He played, 12 games in college or 13 games in college, and then he's in the NFL, and he played a smattering of games last year. This year, we gave him a lot of opportunities, and you still see the rawness. So to me, it's really about him developing and growing. He's going to have opportunities, but right now, we've got Kyle as our 1, we've got Alex as our 2, and he's our 3, and we'll go from there.
It's the big Monday morning water cooler talk. Without getting too political, what is your reaction to the election last night, and what's kind of transpiring today?
Honestly, I have no idea what's transpired since we came out for practice, but again, it's the process. And I think that we as Americans have to appreciate the democratic process that we have. People went out and did their I don't want to call it their duty, but they exercised their right to vote. And because there's so many people who voted, there's so many votes that need to be counted. That's why it's taken a while. But the truth of the matter is, to expect it to have had an answer by now, I think is a little ludicrous, because we shattered records. I guess the last time we had votes like this, it was early 1900s. So this is an amazing thing, and we just, again, as Americans, respect the process, and let's respect and appreciate the outcome, whatever it is.
We got time for 3 more.
Appreciate it, Ron.
Thanks, Scott.
Hey, Ron. When Kyle first took over the starting job, you said you didn't really need him to be anything more than just go out and execute the offense. But long term, I guess, what would you need to see for him to be your starting quarterback of the future for someone who could maybe be a franchise QB?
Well, if we were looking long term, the biggest thing is continue to develop. The guy has a terrific arm. He's a good decision maker so far. But the one thing that he has struggled is protecting the football. He's done a good job. I've seen him have success. I really have. I was with him at one point where he had won 6 games in a row. And you sit there and you see these things that he's capable of, and you know what his potential can be. So for me, it's just continued growth. I mean, it's the same thing that I talk about with Dwayne. It's continued growth. You know, Dwayne's a little bit of a handicap because he's only been in the system 1 year, where Kyle's been in it 3. So as we watch these young guys out here, it's going to be about development, growth, more so than anything else as we continue to go forward with young quarterbacks. And quite honestly, if Alex gets his opportunity, with Alex, it's just going to be about consistency.
A couple people took the questions I had, so let me just go to something random here. You just went through, obviously you've been through many a trade deadline before, but this is the first one with you as the one voice, as it were, the final decision maker. So I'm just wondering, what were those conversations and debates like between Ron Rivera, the coach, and Ron Rivera, the final decision maker on personnel?
Well, I will tell you this, Kyle and I had a lot of conversations about a lot of guys in terms of out there. You know, what people were throwing out in terms of potential, hey, we want to trade you this guy. You know what I'm saying? So we talked a little bit about those things. But for me personally, looking at where we are, what we have, I'm curious about the guys that we have. I really am. And I want to see that. What makes this different and difficult is, as I said, because of the COVID thing. You know, you have so many guys out there that you would love to be able to bring in, run through in workouts, and trade out at the bottom, but you don't know. And because of that, you know, I think I just felt like slow playing a lot of things was probably more important for us going forward. Plus, you know, you always have to take consideration what those salary cap impacts are going to be in terms of what we want to do with the guys that are on our roster right now. We've got a lot of good football players, a lot of young football players that we've got to make decisions on going into next season.
This is the third time you guys are hosting a team that's coming off of a Monday night football game. Is that any sort of an advantage for you, just dealing with an opponent coming off of a compressed week, or do you think that's a little overrated in today's NFL?
I think that can be a little overrated in today's NFL. I do. But, you know, if it plays to our advantage, great. I appreciate that. But I know how hard scheduling it is. I know how scheduling, you know, kind of throws things, you know, for a loop. It's those Thursday nights that are interesting scheduling as well. So we'll see how it goes, though.